Do you remember that Simpsons episode where Bart and Milhouse and Ralph and Nelson form the party posse and then accidentally take part in a massive brainwashing campaign to enlist children in the Navy? Well, the U.S. is doing kind of exactly that in Mexico right now. Seriously, that is a pretty great episode.
There's trouble in a far-off nation. Time to get in love formation.
In 2004, a CD called No Mas Cruces a la Frontera began circulating in Mexico. Full of traditional corridos, a narrative popular style of ballad, these songs spun tragic, violent tales of attempted illegal crossings of the country's northern border.
Pasaron algunas horas, Abelardo abrió los ojos y en el frío de la noche su primo muerto yacía.
No Mas Cruces a la Frontera was commissioned by United States Customs and Border Protection. It was written by an ad agency from Washington, D.C., and it became reasonably popular in Mexico. It was so successful that they did it again with a song the government claims is now in heavy rotation on 21 radio stations throughout Central America.
La bestia del sur le llaman al maldito tren de la muerte. Con el diablo en la caldera, Huita ruge y se retuerce.
La Bestia is directed at countries like Honduras and El Salvador, where hopeful migrants hitch rides on the deadly Bestia train network going through Mexico to the United States.
But the noise and the rattle lulled them to sleep, and frequently they awake beneath the wheels.
In many ways, this is a campaign without precedence. In past episodes, we've discussed music as torture and subliminal messages in music. Those are both great episodes, and you should watch them. But to attempt to dissuade illegal immigration through the use of traditional song is pretty creative.
A mí nunca me dijeron que esto era un viaje al infierno.
The corrido form is nothing if not powerful.
Corridos, la bucanas, mi Cheyenne y una escuadra, la cintura de una plebe y el sabor de la lavada.
Yes, narco corridos. Mexican gangster rap where the protagonists are ultra-violent drug lords and the beat is jaunty.
Van endemoniados, muy bien comandados, listos ya la orden para hacer un desorden, para hacer sufrir y morir a los contras hasta agonizar.
Manías en pedazos, agente a balazos, ráfagas continuas que no se terminan.
Narco corridos are the opposite of what the American government does, which has been dubbed migra corridos, migra being a derogatory term for U.S. border agents. Narco corridos are wildly popular and occasionally politically troubling.
The state of Chihuahua in Mexico prohibited narco corridos music on radio, TV, or concerts.
Until recently, narco performers were banned from the Mexican states of Sinaloa and Chihuahua, while the documentary Narco Cultura spawned fresh outrage north of the border when many American and Canadian audiences were first exposed to these violent ballads.
I think we can be the next hip-hop.
The closest comparison to American border agents hijacking a hyper-specific local sound is found in Europe, where the British government has attempted to popularize moderate Muslim hip-hop in the wake of popular songs like this, which, as a heads up to sensitive viewers, is actually kind of intense. And so the government helped to fund a series of hip-hop concerts called Spittin' Light, an attempt to highlight for British Muslim youth a more moderate side of Islam, promoting artists like Poetic Pilgrimage.
Keeping it secret out of public domain, I'ma speak up and speak out, not in my name. You're washed in filth and your acts are profane. If I rule the world, I swear you'll be slain.
Whether the goal is preventing the growth of violent religious extremism or the deaths of children crossing the US-Mexico border, there is something unsettling about inserting what is effectively native advertising into not just a YouTube video, but authentic regional culture, especially when it's done by the ad agency responsible for Pegasus.
Pegasus, Lord of the Infield Fest. This year's Infield Fest is gonna be epic. You got Bruno Mars and Train performing, a beer garden, and my favorite, the bikini contest.
Seriously, the agency that works with US Customs and Border Protection invented a controversial party centaur.
The star of the show isn't the beautiful horses or the determined jockeys who ride them to glory. Instead, we're given Pegasus, a centaur who loves to party.
Corridos are endlessly romantic with a storied history. Their direct narrative style is a huge part of their appeal, and it also makes the genre much easier to hijack. Whether you want to talk about drug trafficking, or safe borders, or your AMC show.
Anda caliente el cartel, al respeto le faltaron. Hablan de un tal Heisenberg que ahora controla el mercado.
What do you think? Would you listen to a song that you knew was designed by an ad agency or the government to act as propaganda? Let us know what you think in the comments, and be sure to subscribe for new episodes of This Exists every week. Muy picante. First of all, a huge thank you to Rob Dyke for giving us a shout out and doubling the number of subscribers that this channel has literally overnight. In a 24-hour period, we were the 16th most growingly popular channel on YouTube. It was insane. I think the math is that we're like 780,000 times more popular now. So thank you, and welcome to everyone who came and commented and watched tons of videos. Literally, the views doubled on almost all of our videos. So you didn't just come and yell at me about hip hop. You watched a ton of videos, and I'm so psyched you're here, and I hope you'll stick around and love this video. So let's see what you had to say about last week's episode about hip-hop music and whether or not it is racist. Nicholas Alexander, along with many of you, claimed that it's not really racism the way kicking a black person out of a diner or denying them a job or a pay raise is. And my disagreement with that is that there's this thing called dog whistle politics. It's basically code words, the idea that people say things to one group of people and they actually mean a completely different thing. So racism 2014 isn't the same as not letting people of a different color sit with you at the same dining table or go to the same college as you, but it's often about the way that we code and create culture to exclude certain people. So when people talk about states' rights, they're actually talking about segregation. Maybe not you specifically, but that's sort of what people are doing. I'm not saying I'm 100% right, but it's definitely my opinion, so I do think that I'm right. But it was an interesting comment that a lot of you made. Jack Burns was one of many people who said that he didn't think that the Confederate flag is racist. That said, he did think that some people use it for racist purposes, which is sort of my whole argument with the Confederate flag. I know that there are people who fly that flag and don't hate minorities. And as pointed out by Jack and a few others, there are minorities who fly the Confederate flag. But I do think it's not unlike the argument around the Washington Redskins name. How many people do you have to offend in order for something to be deemed completely unacceptable? I think the fact that the Confederate flag stands for an era in the South when African Americans were used as slaves is enough to say it's a flag that is emblematic of slavery. Diego Mark commented, "I prefer narco music." What did you think of the episode, Diego? Grim Reaper said that if he wants something that is country and rap, he prefers to head in the direction of Boondocks, which if you're not familiar, is a Juggalo rapper signed to Psychopathic Records. I'm glad you mentioned that, Grim Reaper, because this is the point in the video where I tell you that I once put on face paint and interviewed Boondocks and Blaze You Dead Homie. And we're gonna play like 30 seconds of that or something right now. I look cool as hell. What's up, ninjas? I'm Sam Sutherland for Ox TV, and yes, I am wearing clown makeup, because over the next few minutes, I'm going to be interviewing So Sick Social Club, Blaze You Dead Homie, and Boondocks. And they're going to be introducing me to the wild and crazy world of Juggalo culture. And stay tuned, because there are definitely going to be gun threats made in this video. Joel Sherman called me a jackwagon, which rules and is a phrase that I will totally hijack and be using in future videos, and made the point that many of you made, that the Civil War was not about keeping or losing slaves, but was about Southern independence from the Northern Union. And I think it's critical to point out that whenever anyone brings up that it wasn't about slavery, which I understand that it wasn't, but was in fact about the Southern economy and taxation and independence, that really what that boils down to is an attempt to hold on to a Southern way of life, which was all built on the backs of the enslavement of African Americans. The Southern economy didn't work. The issues with taxes, the independence, the idea of states' rights, all these things only function with slavery. So I don't understand why you guys don't just agree that I won. This isn't a debate that is raging in the States still, is it? It can't be. I'm from Canada. Diabolical by Design had maybe my favorite one-liner in the comments last week, where he remarked that being from Georgia, if a bunch of white guys are in the woods chanting together with Confederate flags and shotguns, it's not hip-hop, it's a Klan rally. For this week's book recommendation, I'm going to not mention anything that many of you probably haven't read and talk about The Filter Bubble by Eli Pariser. What I think is great about this is that this is the guy that invented Upworthy, a site that I loathe and presumably many of you loathe. But this book is an incredibly intelligent look at algorithms and personalization and how their use on the internet, on places like Facebook and Google, completely affect our worldview. And Eli is actually the first person to introduce me to the idea of these meager corridos. I was aware of narco corridos. Obviously, this is something that comes up in the news every now and again. It's kind of a sexy, fun thing to talk about, Mexican gangster rap that sounds like polka. But the fact that your worldview can be so completely influenced by the media that you are fed, whether that is government propaganda or whether that is Google ranking search based on who it thinks that you are. So even though it's not brand new, I highly recommend The Filter Bubble by Eli Pariser, even and especially if you hate Upworthy.